Audio dynamics is the idea and differences between loud and quiet volumes within a video game, song, or film. Since Blipsounds is more video game focused, we'll be focusing on how audio dynamics apply to games in this video. What I mean by the differences in loud and quiet volumes within a game, I can mean a few different things. This concept of audio dynamics can apply to the volume played along a timeline, where one sound will play quietly, and then 5 seconds later a loud sound will play. Or a soft sound plays then a loud sound, or maybe even a single sound effect playing for a long period of time. A quick example of this is playing a game like Counter-Strike, and you are walking up to the site to defend a bomb point. While you are walking to this point, all that you hear are footsteps, which are mostly pretty quiet. And then when a team approaches the site and starts shooting guns, the volume spikes to a much louder volume. This is obviously a simplified example, but the difference between the quiet footsteps and the loud gunshots is what we call dynamics. But audio dynamics doesn't just mean that you should turn off this video and say, "Good job, Ryan. There are loud and quiet sounds that can change throughout the course of a video game." No, it actually means that audio dynamics can be used to our advantage when creating video games to perform a number of things. And you should keep on watching because I'm going to be going over some pretty cool examples of sounds in games that use audio dynamics properly to elicit unique emotions from a player. And it's kind of cool because most of it is done through simply changing the volume strategically, depending on what's happening during the game. Borean the Blind Forest has an excellent example of this. I think that the audio dynamics in this game are probably one of the strongest pieces to the soundscape in the game. There are a lot of cool examples of proper sound practices in the game, but I wanted to talk about how they actually use audio dynamics to make certain moments more exciting. Ori and the Blind Forest has a specific sort of contrast to its gameplay that involves exploration and combat. During the exploration sections, you're just exploring the world trying to discover a secret area, or maybe platforming to get energy cells or progressing the story some more. And during combat, you launch your attacks at enemies while you try and dodge their attacks. It creates a really interesting dynamic where you sit down to relax and explore the game and take in the beautiful music and scenery, and then you have to bring things up to speed a little bit during sections where you fight enemies or navigate your way through dangerous platforming sections. And along with that dynamic of relaxing exploration and combat comes our audio dynamics. Take a listen to the difference between when you're exploring and when you're in combat. Do you hear the difference? The combat sections are much louder, which helps create some excitement, while the exploration parts of the game are much softer and quieter. This is a very simple and direct example of the contrast within audio dynamics. The game has really soft bass sounds for the jumping, running, wall jumping, ambiences, and the music, and it overall feels like a really relaxing pace to explore the world of Ori and the Blind Forest. And notice how all of these sounds don't really draw too much attention, but are there to act as a little personable aspect and reflect the calm and open atmosphere of the exploration. And during combat, the sounds are loud, explosive, and exciting, which reflect the range of emotions throughout the game. And it's kind of cool to think of it from the perspective where you have a more open world to explore where things are calm during exploration sections, and the audio reflects that by being calmer. And then during the more intense sections, like when you're in combat, the audio becomes much louder due to the general attacking and damage sounds during the fights. This sort of contrast is very important in a game, because like I mentioned, the audio dynamics reflects the actions that happen throughout the game. And as you can hear in the example of Ori and the Blind Forest, it doesn't necessarily have to do with a single sound effect, but how it's actually mixed and placed in the game itself over time. And as you can see, the overall volume of the specific sections have their own sort of place on the audio dynamic scale. We have volume in games for a reason. We are able to change the individual volumes of sound effects and have even more customization in the game, as well as to cater to specific gameplay instances. So this means that we need to use volume to our advantage in a game. If it can create a greater experience for the gamer, then why not do it? Another great example of proper audio dynamics is in the game Limbo. Limbo is really all about its atmosphere, and the sounds in Limbo actually take a very important role in the game to help bring out this sort of atmosphere. We'll probably go over Limbo some more in future videos as it has a lot of cool ideas with its sound to talk about. But for this example, we're going to look at how Limbo uses long-term audio dynamics to help it tell its story. Limbo doesn't really have any clear or direct story that is told through words, but the story reveals itself slowly throughout the game as you play, and you come across more and more dangerous and complex puzzles along the game. For example, The game starts off fairly primitive with a simple boat, some bear traps, some rocks falling, and some holes to jump across. And later in the game you need to operate machinery, and eventually you have to play with gravity itself to platform properly. And what's cool about all of this is the audio dynamics increase through its sound design and music to help enhance the feelings of the game. Even the most dangerous enemies at the start of the game don't sound nearly as loud as some of the things at the end of the game. Limbo is definitely an engaging experience throughout, but they were able to display the progression and complexity in the audio to match the gameplay very well. And it's all simply through raising the overall volume of the sound as you progress in the game. And one of the big reasons they're able to accomplish this is through audio dynamics, by raising the overall volume of the sound as you progress through the game. Here's an example of the soundscape from the beginning of the game. The middle of the game, and the end of the game. The audio dynamics generally increase as the game goes on. There are moments where it drops in volume occasionally towards the end, and even get louder in the beginning. But as a whole, the volume just builds up louder and louder, and it reflects the gameplay and story of Limbo quite well, synchronizing the audio and gameplay together. And you might be asking yourself, what if there was just combat all of the time? What if my game is exciting all of the time from a gameplay perspective? Should the audio be exciting all of the time? Well, the short answer is no. A big reason that we implement audio dynamics into games is because of the relativity from the loud sounds to the soft sounds. A big reason those loud sounds are so powerful and satisfying to listen to are because of the relative loudness to the quieter sounds. Look at it this way. If you have loud sounds playing all of the time throughout a game, would there really be such thing as loud sounds? Well, not really, because they all have the same volume. And in that sense, what does loud really mean? Loud in comparison to what? You can set your speakers on your computer or TV to play anything with sound loudly, but in the space of a single video game, all that really matters is the relative volume from one sound to another. Take Rogue Legacy as an example. Rogue Legacy, while a very fun game, doesn't use audio dynamics very well, when there actually are some very appropriate spots for it to display audio dynamics. Throughout the whole game, there's a looping music track that is too loud, crazy loud footsteps from your hero, and generally pretty quiet sword swinging sounds, and the enemies themselves tend to not make a lot of noise either. This is sort of just a mismatch of volumes being placed poorly across everything in the game. We have extremely loud footsteps which should probably be quieter because they are happening consistently throughout the game. And then we have the sword swipe, which is quieter than the footsteps. Now this is just me talking from the perspective if I were creating the sounds for the game, but I would make the sword swipe sound much louder since that's an action and control by the player, and can be seen as exciting. And when you attack enemies, there's a damage sound effect that plays when you connect a hit, but I feel that something louder and more satisfying would suit better. And then with all of that, it sort of feels like all of the audio is blended together by the music, because it's all at the same volume. But even if I turn off the music, it sort of feels like all of the sounds are the same volume, and it just feels like there isn't a whole lot of variety in the audio dynamics. This is okay if they are the same volume, but there's usually some sort of hierarchy. Like in Ori and the Blind Forest, Ori's footsteps were quiet, and when you engaged in combat, things got louder. Something similar could have been implemented very well for Rogue Legacy, I feel. I just feel that Rogue Legacy had some potential with its audio to be a little bit more varied and exciting and engaging. Instead, it just feels sort of dry and lifeless. And that's exactly what our audio dynamics help give a game. Life. So the obvious solution to this is to create proper balance in the soundscape in our game, and we can strategize this further by making soft sounds play at appropriate times, and then counter them with loud sounds for the more exciting moments. So let's go back to our previous question. What if my game is to be exciting all the time from a gameplay perspective? Should the audio have loud sounds all the time? Remember, it's not just a matter of having the audio reflect the emotions that happen throughout the game. It's all about the relativity of the sounds between each other. The loud sounds are really only perceived as loud if you have some quiet sounds in the mix along with it. And this is even the case if you have to play quiet sounds very quickly before a loud sound. One of my favorite examples of this quick audio dynamics change is in Titan Souls. In Titan Souls, most of the game involves boss fights with different titans. These boss fights are typically really exciting, so Titan Souls raises the volume appropriately to reflect the emotion and excitement of the bosses. Now, Titan Souls wanted to make defeating a Titan feel incredibly satisfying and exciting. They were able to accomplish this perfectly by using proper audio dynamics. In short, you shoot your arrow into the Titan's weak point, and all of the audio cuts out, completely obliterating the excitement, and even catching you by surprise with such sudden volume change. Then you begin to pull your arrow back, and this happens. Did you see what they did? You're in the middle of the boss fight and you hit its sweet spot, and they cut out the volume to create another exciting moment in the game to make the moment when you are pulling the arrow more exciting. And this moment when you pull the arrow goes back to its loud volume, and is made more meaningful by having the softer volume, which is simply relative audio dynamics taking place. By simply scripting out the sequence to have the arrows get stuck in the Titan, and make it so you had to pull it out makes it all that more exciting. You can tell that Titan Souls put in a lot of effort to create this kind of experience. They could have easily just gone from killing the Titan to the epic scene where you collect the soul, but they added the extra bit to make it a more cinematic and exciting experience. They went to the quiet section on purpose to make the moment following the arrow being pulled more exciting. In my opinion, it wouldn't have been nearly as exciting and interesting if it hadn't had the quiet section before you pull the arrow, but because they added that short-term relative audio dynamics of the quiet to loud sounds, they were able to make the scene more memorable and enjoyable. And another thing to mention is the difference between the quiet and loud volumes. The quiet sounds before you pull the arrow are extremely quiet, while the soul collecting section is very loud. The quiet section could have been a little bit louder, but the experience is so much more rich and exciting when the difference between the loud and soft volumes are greater. The loud soul collecting sound probably still would have been extremely exciting if it didn't have the quiet section, but it made much more of an impact because it had the relative quiet section to compare the louder section to, almost like it grabs your attention. So as you can see, audio dynamics is a pretty simple concept to grasp. It's really just a matter of more or less, louder or softer. But as shown in this video, it can be pretty complex and used in a variety of ways. We have our volume reflecting the excitement and interactivity over the long term in a game like Ori and the Blind Forest. We also talked about how audio dynamics can be effective by increasing the volume of your game slowly over time, like in Limbo. While we also use short-term examples like Titan Souls, where it was demonstrated that relative audio dynamics is very important as well, and that having the softer sounds is still important even in the exciting moments of the game. And there are far more examples than what's been seen here in this video. I encourage you to look out for more examples of this on your own when creating games yourself. Thanks for watching, guys. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. Just a quick reminder that Blipsounds has sounds and courses that you can check out and purchase at blipsounds.com in the description below. If you're looking to become more involved in a game audio community and learn about sound design, we also have a Discord channel full of game developers and sound designers who love to talk about games, sound, and anything game development related. Anyway, hope to see you guys there.